Psychiatrists, what made you realize that the person was not doing well? I can teach you guys about the flight to health that happens after someone survives a suicide attempt. You'll talk to them, and they have all these genuine plans to make their life better. They're enthusiastic and ready to get out of the hospital, to start their new life. They're going to quit their horrible job, love their family more, etc, etc. I'm always incredibly worried for these patients, because soon the depression slowly brings them down again. It's hard because convincing these people that they still need a lot of help is difficult, because they are completely genuine. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I do have a master's in clinical psychology and worked in the mental health field for 10 years before I had to switch careers. Anytime somebody describes themselves as lazy, I almost immediately know they are probably experiencing anhedonia or some other mental health symptom. A lot of people underestimate how bad their mental health is. People often think others have it worse and think they're somehow taken away from people who need their help. They say they haven't had any energy lately. There's more, but I'm tired. I was a patient. Before our first meeting, she asked me to write her an email summarizing the concerns I had that led me to seek help. Upon arriving, I asked if she'd read it yet, and expressed concern that I was overreacting, making too much of very little, and wasting her time. I was even a bit embarrassed. She had read it, and I was informed that based upon my description of what led me there, a huge part of my problem was I'd slowly, over time, allowed myself to be convinced that everything I was enduring was normal, when in fact, it was highly abusive. In the emotional sense, that revelation was huge when I realized addressing what I needed to face and overcome was much larger than I'd ever imagined, and just how much doing what I needed to do was going to hurt, and that it was going to hurt for a long time. I say all that to say, if anyone is wondering if they really need help, or if they are just mentally overreacting, in either case, it certainly wouldn't hurt to seek out a professional you're comfortable with and get some feedback. Psych nurse here. I had a friend who was never happy. She was in okay moods, could laugh and all that, but she rarely voiced positive emotions, had a history of past suicide attempts, so she was a friend we always checked on and kept her close with us. The week before her suicide, she became extremely happy and giddy. She behaved like she had never done before her life got ruined thanks to some events I won't discuss. I saw this and voiced my concerns. I knew it was a sign that a suicide attempt was coming. This behavior is typical on patients who are planning to end it. In most cases, this time we didn't get to her in time. We miss her dearly. I married someone with BPD, and I know the signs when she isn't well. But thankfully I can act before stuff happens, and she has not attempted on her life or harmed herself in 2 years. I'm a therapist. When a person has a hard time understanding that their self-destructive behaviors are affecting themselves and their loved ones, to me, that's an indication that something else was going on. Trauma, addiction, etc. I had to tell my psychiatrist recently that I found an old friend in the cemetery visiting my dad who passed unexpectedly. He told me he can't go there because he would recognize too many names. The man has been with me over 10 years, has seen me through a lot, and is one of the reasons I'm still here. I always figured I needed plenty of help though. As a mainly inpatient psychiatrist, I already know, before I see them, that they aren't doing well just by nature of them being admitted. When I see folks in the and I'm determining if they need admission in the first place, it depends. Not doing well because they are manic looks much different than not doing well because they are depressed vs not doing well because they are psychotic, etc. I'm a psychotherapist, not a psychiatrist. I notice a client getting worse if their sleep or eating habits change, anhedonia, trouble with concentration or focus when there wasn't an issue before, or they start to socially withdraw. Huge red flags. If they start to give away personal items and all of a sudden feel happy, it takes a while to get severely depressed, etc, and it'll take a while to feel better. These huge red flags indicate suicidal thoughts and possible planning. I'm working on my PhD in psychology, so not a psychiatrist. At the beginning of the pandemic I started working with a kid over telehealth. Her parents wanted her to do therapy for depression. She was pretty hard to work with over video, because she would take a while to respond to what I was saying. and sometimes I would have to repeat myself. She would also start randomly smiling/laughing at whatever was on her screen. I figured she was messing around on the computer during our sessions until one day I saw that she was looking at herself in the video call. From that and the disorganized thinking, my supervisor and I figured out she had psychosis. Parents wouldn't listen, and she had a full-blown psychotic episode that led to a multiple-week hospitalization. Poor kid was completely lost to her delusions and hallucinations, with her parents more concerned about her not being able to do her schoolwork. I'm not a psych either, but as someone who has both been to many psychologists and therapists, and done thousands of hours of research into psychological phenomena and mental illnesses, there's a lot you will see in day-to-day just browsing social spaces such as Reddit, where people will share other freely, or Discord, where people in smaller servers will trust others enough to talk. There's a lot of ways to not do well, and there are signs for all of them. The biggest, of course, is the very thing which makes a disorder, a marked impairment of functioning at the level others appear to. It'll be described in many different ways and manifest in many more, but the basis to tell if someone isn't doing well is that the kind of not doing well depends on in what way they find they're lacking in comparison to others, or how they believe they should be doing. If anyone is asking, how do other people do basic task, or similar. Example, I don't get how other people can smile genuinely. It's likely something is wrong either mentally, chronically, physically, or because of neglect. If you suspect you're mentally ill, or have a disorder, but are having doubts, take this excerpt from Immune by Philip Detmer. It's about physical health, specifically infectious diseases, but mental illness is called mental illness for a reason, and it applies to health in general. How crucial health is becomes most apparent when it is missing. Health is really an abstract concept, because it describes the absence of something, the absence of suffering and pain, the absence of limitations. If you are healthy, you feel normal, you feel right. Serious answer, I've worked both inpatient and outpatient. It truly is rewarding to see your care plan help someone. First time I meet them, I go through a whole history, physical, and review of systems and symptoms. Psych symptoms. I get people that genuinely start crying. Usually sleep pattern disturbance is a big indicator. Anhedonia is the hallmark sign of depression. It is a loss in pleasure in things that you used to enjoy, like gardening or video games. There are suicide warning signs, such as giving personal belongings away. There are so many signs for different illnesses, such as bipolar. I'll get a man who is spending his rent check, or having risky and unsafe intimate time. It truly is interesting and rewarding, very subjective. After seeing my psych for almost a year, finding out that no, I'm not haunted, it's just the PTSD and anxiety, and a bunch of other revelations. I had an appointment where I told her that for the last month I'd been happier than ever. I was walking on sunshine, and for the first time in 15 years I'd gone a week without any suicidal thoughts, food issues, self-harm urges, or anxiety attacks. At this, she urged me to immediately set up talk therapy and schedule all my appointments ahead. While I had energy, she saw that uptick as a red flag. It was, but I didn't listen to her. Now 8 months later I've called her one time, barely shower or eat, and I'm back at my worst mentally. It's fine though, I'm used to it. Not a psych, but I've been to plenty. The moment when I realized I wasn't making up my issues wasn't the first time a counselor ran out of the room sobbing during one of my sessions. It was the second time. The first time, I knew she had MH issues herself. Bad divorce. I figured I must have just been there at the wrong time. I gaslit myself intensely about the severity of my life experiences, and was only 16. The second time, she gathered herself, stopped my story, came back in, and referred me for urgent help with the nearest psychologist. I was put on antidepressants that day, had a nap within a fortnight for an hour-long intake with a psychologist, which is excellent for MH issues in the UK, and left his office with a therapy referral and 8 diagnoses. I've since gone into remission with a couple of them now. Depression still kicks my A, and so does anxiety, but I've got a much better handle on it. I've worked in psychiatry as an MD, but not a psychiatrist. Sometimes you can have a polite, friendly conversation with someone who seemed normal, then you talk about a specific topic and an enormous system of delusions unravels. then you're like right, and it makes sense why they are admitted. Then there are the obvious ones: crying, hallucinating, etc. People most often are very honest and want the help, so it's quite obvious what the problem is and that they are not doing well. Well, I'm only a PGY1 psychiatry resident, so I don't have a lot of experience yet. I don't want to get into specifics, but usually talking to the family to get collateral information plays a huge part in determining how serious a patient's risk of suicide is. I've talked to patients who seem totally okay, swear to God it was an accident, they forgot they took too many sleeping pills, blah blah blah, they have future oriented thought process and all the markers of being low risk, and then I talk to their family and it just goes down the toilet. Patients lie or have a post-attempt glow, where they didn't expect to survive, and are suddenly thinking everything is okay, so you can't trust them too much, beyond the normal things other people have mentioned. But if I talk to a patient's parent/partner and pick up a lot of cluster B personality traits, I really worry about that patient, because of their lack of social support regardless of how well they think they are doing, because you just know they are going to be discharged into a toxic home life. I was telling my doctor I was having trouble concentrating. I told her, sometimes I feel there's like this other world. It's just within reach, but I can't quite get there. It's so nice and so peaceful, like waking up from this wonderful dream, and you want to go back to sleep, to be in that dream. She put down her iPad and looked at me very intently and said, "Have you ever seen a psychiatrist? I think you should see a psychiatrist, not a psychologist, a medical doctor, as soon as possible." Mine is the opposite. I was seeing this psychiatrist for the first time, and he got drugged up quickly right before my session. The session ended up this incoherent blabbing and me trying to act like he's in a normal state. Luckily after a while his wife called him and demanded talking to the patient, me. I talked to her, and she urged I leave immediately. I explained how that's what I wanted, but I was legitimately scared. I was able to leave soon after. I was petrified and didn't know what to do. I decided not to report his behavior. Maybe it was a mistake, but I felt like we're all human. I was there to stop self-medicating/sabotaging with alcohol, and I was embarrassed thinking how I did similar things, so ironically he made me stop for a while. My psychiatrist told me that she could tell I wasn't doing well when I had had 7 previous suicide attempts, and actually told her I had a plan for the 8th. Not only did she know I needed help, but she knew that I subconsciously wanted help because I told her about my plan. She's told me that she can also tell when I'm not doing well because I sit differently because of how my pants rub against my guts. She's such an amazing psychiatrist, and the fact that she can tell just from how I sit, and is 99% of the time correct, that I need help, and guides me through every step of the way to get it. She also goes out of her way to see me when I'm inpatient, even though she's typically outpatient/PHP only.